Welcome back, guys, to another video about the Challenge Lab of Module 10, Automating Infrastructure Deployment. Now, the idea behind this lab is to use the CloudFormation from the AWS CLI and also to integrate it with CodeCommit and CodePipeline in order to get an idea how the infrastructure as a code can be implemented to deploy multiple environments for your architecture, one for production and one for dev. Also, most importantly, is the use of CodeCommit in order to automate the code repository of your architecture template. And that template, once you change it, it will trigger the code pipeline to deploy and automatically update the stack of services that you have. And then we will see how the code pipeline could be integrated with CodeCommit in order to automate the stack update. In the first stack now, or in the first task, we will create an AWS CloudFormation template. Cloud9, you will find that there is an Cloud9 instance, and once you open it, you will basically find it open in the console there in the Cloud9. And this is basically the Cloud9 terminal that you can have in order to start working on the lab. Now, in the first task here, we are going to create a new file, and we will save this file into s3.yaml. So in this file here, in step number 7, we want to use a cloud template in order to build the S3 template, which is basically to create an S3 bucket. Now I have the starting code for all these files, and I'm going to put them in the Git just in case if you want to refer to them in order to learn and to refer to them as examples. So the starting point for my bucket is going to be a template, which is basically it's going to be this version here. Now, please note that this is the template version. It's not like the date of the creation or something like that. Now, the description, as instructed by the lab, it's café S3 template, and the resources here, we are going to create an S3 bucket, and this is the type of the resource we are going to create. Now, in the next step here, we are going to get the configuration of the console just to make sure that we are working on the US East region, which is basically the default region that we use for all our lab in the Academic Cloud Architecting class. And then we'll use this command here, which is an AWS CLI command, which is AWS CloudFormation, create a stack. And this will be the name of the stack, which is a create bucket. And the template body will be basically a source of that template will be the file, which is s3capital.yaml. Now, once you press enter, you can see here the template body is basically invalid because maybe I did not save the modification I made. Let's go back and run the command here. And now this is give me the stack ID, which basically if you go now to services and you select the CloudFormation, you will find that there is a new stack just created called create bucket. It's in progress, and you can see in the output after this completed, it will display the bucket name. You could also go to S3 in a new tab to verify that this is the bucket that we are going to use to host the cafe. As you can see here, the bucket creation, which is a create a stack S3 bucket, and it's in North Virginia. So let us go back now to the lab sheet. And in the configuration now in step 11, we are going to, after we create the bucket and we view what we have done in the creation and we answer the multiple choice question, we need to get now the files that we are going to use in order to deploy the website or the static website of the cafe. So let me copy now the wget command from the console here. And this URL is going to download the demo file for the static website. Let us unzip it into a folder called static, and you can see the folder static is up there in the top, and this is our index.html page with the images that we are going to use and the styling.css. Now let us go to that directory, which is called directory cd static. And now we will use an AWS command, AWS S3 copy, and the copy is going to be recursive. All files to S3, and now we need to select the bucket name. So if you go back to S3, and this is the bucket that we just create. And let's go back to the console here and put the slash. Now the object access list is going to be public read. Let me just make this obvious, public dash read. Press enter, and now you should be able to go to the bucket, and you can see that bucket should contains all the files and the images. Now, in step number 16, as I said, we want to enable two things. We are going to enable the deletion policy to retain, and also to make the properties to activate static website hosting and load the file index.html and get the attribute of the website URL from the bucket. So we're going to update the S3 bucket, and we attach the deletion policy. And then we need to go to the CloudFormation, okay, and basically to validate the CloudFormation template after our modification using the command that we can see in step number 20. Let me clear this so you can read the commands. So the first thing, I need to go back to the default environment, and then I copy the command from step number 20 to activate or to validate the content of the S3 bucket. So this means now the CloudFormation template is correct, and all I need to do is to update the stack using the command in step number 21, which is basically a command we use to update the stack. Now, if you go back to the bucket and refresh the page, and you can also check from the properties here that this is now containing the bucket website URL. In the same way in the CloudFormation stack, if you refresh the CloudFormation stack, you will see that the bucket is basically updated. So create bucket is updating in progress. You could also check the output to see if there is any output I could get from the website, which is the static web hosting. And once I open or once I click on it, I find that I can see the static website of the café. So once we verify that we can see the public site of the café and everything is fine, we can move now to the new business requirement to store a template in the CodeCommit. So we are going to clone a CodeCommit repository in order to use it with CodePipeline. So let us go now from the console to CodeCommit. And CodeCommit is going to be our source of that template. In the CodeCommit, we can see that the Café template repository is there, and there is a template, and there is basically multiple things. The Start Lab template, which is basically the UML tab that they will use once you click on the Start Lab here in the console. So this is the template that they create for you. And basically the second thing, we have template 1 and template 2. So template 1 is basically a networking template to create the networking, similar to what we did in the guided lab, which will create a VPC, and that VPC create an internet gateway, and we'll attach the internet gateway. We'll create a public route table, and then we'll create a public routes, and then a public subnet, and we associate the public subnet in the route table. In step number 25, we want now to basically copy the template and we clone it in our Cloud9. So we are going to go back, and in that page, we clone the URL of the template folder. So if you go back here, there is clone URL, clone the HTTPS, and once you go to Cloud9 and you do this command, which is get clone, and we paste that command, we are going to get the template of the lab files here in our Cloud9 environment. So these are template 1 and template 2. Now let us move on, and we can also verify the status of this Git repository here by using the command get status, which means it's going to give us everything on the main branch and everything is up to date because we had made no changes up to this point. Now we will create now a new network layer with the AWS CloudFormation and CodeCommit and CodePipeline. So here we need to pay attention. So the first thing we need to do is in template number 1, which is the one we use to create a VPC, we are going to right-click on this file from Cloud9 and duplicate it. And then we will call it as a café network.yaml. Now right-click, rename that file, and now paste the new name of that file, which is café network.yaml. Now, in the next few things, we need to open that café network.yaml in step number 29, and we will add a few descriptions just to distinguish what exactly we did, which is this is a network layer for the café. Don't forget to add a few spaces here because YAML is very sensitive for blank spaces and new lines. Now, we want to observe the code pipeline. So let us go from here. You need to open multiple tabs for this lab, which is fine. Having a second monitor or a text editor is going to be also very useful. And you can see there is a café network pipeline, which means it's going to be linked with the café template, and the café app pipeline, which is going to be linked with the café template or the EC2 template for the café that we will do later on. So once you open the café template, you will find the source action here, and the source of the output is going to be CodeCommit in this directory. So any change in that directory is going to be basically trigger a new deployment. And the change set, if you look here, is going to be linked with the café network as well, the café network.yaml file. So this is the source of the modification we made in that source file, which is this file here, going to trigger this code pipeline here in order to deploy and start a new CloudFormation stack. So now we need to analyze the source stage. We analyze the deploy stage, and we install the configuration. Now going back to the template, if you put get status again, you will find there is a new changes happen because we add a new file, and that file is not included in the commit yet. So we are going to do this command, which is get add template, the name of the file, template /café-network.yaml, and this will add the file to the watch of the get protocol. And now we need to put this command, which make as an initial message for commit, to commit the changes that we made in this café network. And then we do get the status again. You can basically see now Get protocol is seeing this new file and it's monitoring all the changes in it. And now all we need to do is to push that changes, the new file with all its changes, back to the repository in the CodeCommit. So once we put get push, that will push the changes to the CodeCommit, and at the same time, will trigger the code pipeline to deploy and to start a new modification here. So you are going to go and refresh the page. After a few minutes, you will start to see that this café network pipeline start to see more changes in progress. Normally, this is take a few minutes. If you want to do this manually, you could also press retry after several failed. You can also do this from here to the retry button, but let us wait for this to start the process automatically. As you can see here, it's in progress, initiated, and the change set is going to be AWS Cloud Formation, and there is a new update for the Café network. As you can see, the stack just start to do some modification. You can look to the events creation complete for Internet Gateway, for a VPC. It is completed as well, based on the description that we have in step 34. You could also go back in step 34 and troubleshoot if you have any issue with the code. And feel free to refer to my sample code that I'm going to put in GitHub to basically compare the solution for this lab with your own modification and with your own solution as well. So let us go back to step 34. In step 34, after we managed to do and to initiate the code pipeline successfully, now we need to go and do a few changes. Make sure to refer to these troubleshooting tips if needed, and let us update the network stack. So what we are going to do now is to add the following lines at the bottom of Café network. There is nothing really we need to do about these. It's only mainly it will ask the CloudFormation to print out once the status of the task or the stack is completed, is to print out a few information. So it will print out the subnet ID and the VPC ID. Save the changes, and now let us go again and make another commit. There is no need to add because the file is already added into the Git. So let us go add a message, and we will say now add a new output section to the file in templates, and the name of the file is café/network.yaml. So that is the commit message, and I will show you where you will see this commit message taking effect. And now let us push the changes to code commit again. In a few minutes now, you will see that this new message will appear here. So once the new changes of the file, they are going to be obviously here in the source. What is the source action, initial commit, and what is the deployment as well, based on which action it happened and where it take effect in the run change set and the source action set. So the source always is AWS CodeCommit in this lab, and the target, let's say, of the change is going to be the CloudFormation. So it is adding a new output section. You could go back to the CloudFormation, refresh here, and you could basically see that there is a new update happened and there is a new output you can see in the VPC output section, the public IP, the subnet ID of the public subnet, and the VPC ID as well. So once we are done now, we want to define a new EC2 instance and to create the application stack. And this is going to be based on the second template that we have. Now, this task is very challenging and you have to pay attention to it. So you are giving this initial file, and there is a few things you need to change. So if you look in step 41, you have to add another parameters. So there is a parameter for the last AMI ID. So this is the parameter we read in that region. What is the latest AMI ID for Linux 2? And then there is the network parameter. What is the name of the stack that we use for the Café network? And then there is the mapping. So we are mapping and we are saying if you are executing this template in the region US East, use this key pair. If you are executing this CloudFormation template in US East 2, use this key pair, which is café-Oregon. Now, what we are creating a security group for the café. We open port 80, we open port 22, and we open as well, or we want to print out the public IP address of the web instance. Now, in the same way, we are going to duplicate this. And once we duplicate it, okay, we need to rename it. And we will call it, in this case, we are going to call it café app.yaml as specified in the lab in step 42. So let's go back, right click, rename, and now put café app.yaml file. Now, a few things here. We need to go to the documentation and we need to define a new parameter in the template section. Now, this parameter is going to deal with, to ask the user to select which EC2 instance size he wants. Now, I prepared this café parameter before, so I'm going to show you here. So the instance type parameter is going to be a type string. The default, if the user not specifying anything, we're going to call this T2 small. If the allowed value, he can select micro small as well, whether T2 generation or third generation, and we give him like a description as well. So we need to add this bit here below the café network parameter. Now, as I said, the spaces in YAML are very important. You might get an error because of that. So be careful when you copy and paste, guys. It's very important to be quite sure about the number of spaces that you have in the template. Now, the next thing we want is in the resources, we want to create a café instance. And that café instance is going to be an EC2 instance. We will use the image ID from the last image ID in the parameter we create. So we are referencing the last image ID or the AMI ID. The type is going to be taken from the instance type parameter, which is the one I just created. And also the mapping here, we want to find the region. And based on the region, we do the mapping for the key pair. And the network interface is going to be true for public IP address. And then the subnet ID, we are going to import the value of the subnet ID from the café network.yaml file, that one we just create in the previous stack. And then we need to basically put some text here in the user data to launch a script. And then now we use the café security group, open port 80, and then print out the instance IP. So let me copy this and paste it. I will make this file available to you guys in the GitHub, but I need to work here in the Café app. So be careful, guys, where you need to work. So let me go back now, select all, copy, and delete the current and save. Now, in the same way we add the previous file, we are going to add the café app.yaml file to the CodeCommit. And then we add a commit message, -m. And now I want to push the changes. You could also use the command, the verification of the lab in order to verify that everything you did there is correct in step 45. You could also use this if you are not sure what is exactly the situation in your template. You could verify it, then you commit, and then you change. But because I have the solution for this task, I'm going to just carry on. Otherwise, it will take so much time to finish the recording. Now we need to wait for the code pipeline to be triggered by the commit, and that will basically create a new stack. And that stack is going to be creating an EC2 instance as well. And this will be creating a new EC2 instance with the new stack as well, which is the Café app. As you can see, it's in a progress. So everything seems to be very good, working as planned. So it managed to create a security group so far. We could keep track on this. Now it's creating the Café instance, and we will wait now for the output to print out the IP address of the Café. So we are now in step number 50, waiting for the IP address of the Café to appear, because once we have it, we are going to access the Café. You could also check in a new tab your EC2. Just see if there is a new EC2 initialized. And you can see it's in building state. CodeCommit and my CloudFormation and CodePipeline are working as expected. Now, you could refresh the code pipeline to see the progress, and you see the source is add an EC2 template, which is the message I add. And this is under deployment, so we are expecting this to finish in a few minutes as well. You could check the EC2. Once the EC2 is ready, you could go back to the CloudFormation, get the IP address. So you can get the IP address from here, or you can go to the EC2 and get it from there as well. They are both going to do the same thing. Now, because the EC2 is still initializing, loading the user data there, which is basically the script here, which is going to install Apache server, MariaDB, and also it will get an Amazon Linux files and then run them, and then install the Café app.sh as well there. This is sometimes will take time for the Café site to appear. You could see still initializing, so we need to wait for a few more minutes until we manage to see the Café website. So let us now go and answer question 4 and 5 and 6 until we can see the Café website is ready to be viewed from the website. And you can see here I have the Café website running, so everything is going perfect for me. In task number 7, we want to duplicate the Café network and the website to another AWS region. And this is basically the point of infrastructure as a code, that the same template can be used to deploy your dev, your test, your production environment, and the same configuration you use, you can replicate them, reuse them, test them as well in multi-environment. So the first thing we need to do here is to go back to Cloud9. And from Cloud9, this is what we are going to do. We are going to create a stack and to update the Café network based on the file of the Café network without changing anything, because we are going to pass now the region parameter to be used with the new deployment, with the new region in the US West 2. So let me go back now to the root of my Cloud9, and then I paste the command here, which is going to read the file from the templates Café network.yml in the region US West 2. Press enter. Go back to your CloudFormation, go to the stacks and refresh. You will be able to see a new update happened in the US West Oregon. So switch now the region to Oregon, and you'll see the update Café network in progress in this region, not in the Virginia region. So be careful about that, guys. And now we want to go into that region, and we need to create a key pair with this name, which is Café-Oregon. And that Café key is going to be used mainly by the second template when we run the EC2 template. So let us go to the EC2 and into the key pair. And from the key pair, we just create the key pair based on the name specified. Now, why this name? For a very simple reason. If you go back to the Café-app, we said earlier in the parameter, if you are going to create this CloudFormation template in Oregon, in US West, then use this key pair. And this is what we did in the mapping. So if you are executing this CloudFormation template in this region, US West 2, use that key pair. If you are executing it in US East 1, use the invoke key. So we need to create this key beforehand. And now the next thing we need to do is to go to the Café app. In the text editor, we go to the key name and then the instance type parameter as well. And we see the allowed value that we have T2 small as a default. And there is a simple task we need to do in step number 57. We will copy that file, the cafe app.yml, to S3 bucket. Now, this bucket is going to be, if you go back to your S3s, there must be a bucket with repo in it. And this is, for example, the bucket that I need to use. This is the name of it, so I will copy the name here. You could take that name into a text editor and just save it there. Go back now to the lab sheet, copy the command that you want to use in a Cloud9, and let me just clear to make it easy, and then paste that command, and then change the bucket name. So get the bucket name that we have here. Now let's go back and we put this command, which is AWS S3, copy the file template cafe-app.yml S3 to this bucket name. Now you have to be careful before you execute this file. You are going to be in the CFT template, in the cafe template repo first, and then you do the command of S3. So let me go back now and let us copy the command. So it's going to be AWS S3 copy from template cafe-app.yml. It's going to go to S3. That's the destination of the copy, and the bucket, which is the one I just copied from the S3 console here. And now, if you go to that bucket, you will see that there is the new file I just added, cafe-app.yml. Things are really easy from here. We need to go back to the CloudFormation stack. And from the CloudFormation stack, we just want to upload and to create a new stack in the US Oracle. So in this particular step, we need to go to CloudFormation. So let's go to CloudFormation in a new tab. I am in US Oracle, and from CloudFormation, I need to go and create a new stack. Now from the S3 bucket here, I need to select the file and copy the object URL, and template is ready, Amazon S3 URL, and this is to show you how you can use S3 as well to save all these CloudFormation template, and then we will click next. Let us call this dev site, and this will be T2 or T3 micro, and this is the latest AMI ID. Click next. You could also put here a key value and tag, but based on the lab instruction, just use the default, click next, and then click create. So once this is created and show in the output the IP address of your cafe, this means you finished the lab successfully. Feel free to submit it. So let us wait now for the cafe to display the IP address of the EC2 instance. You could also go to EC2 in this region and verify that there is a new EC2 created in the instances based on the cafe website. I am in Oregon, US West 2, and the cafe website, it just start to load. It will take a few minutes before you can see the main website of the cafe based on the script that we have in the CloudFormation template. to also go back to the CloudFormation template and basically check the progress. You can see the output, the IP address of the web server. In the resources, it's showing create complete. In the events, create complete for the dev site. The stack is fully displayed. You can also go to the stack and the creation is completed. In a few minutes, you will be able to see the main website of the cafe. And as you can see now, we have two websites for the cafe, one in US East and one in US West. You can call this a dev site and there a production. You can call this also based on our understanding of disaster recovery, replication of our cafe. Thank you for seeing this video.